Okay, friends, I am here to do a Reiki book review. I have been promising to do this for longer than I can remember. So I'm going to dive right in. I have read a number of books about Reiki, probably somewhere in the range of 20 different books about Reiki, and I've done 3 different in-person trainings for different courses in Reiki. So I've spent a lot of time researching this, and I'm always being asked, like, what resources do you recommend if I wanted to learn about Reiki? So today I'm going to give you the books that I think are the ones that you should read. So the first book I'm going to recommend to you today is a book called Reiki in Japan by Nasaki Nishina. I believe that this is the most essential book out there right now that's not written in Japanese, because there are 2 books written in Japanese that I have not yet read because I can't read fluently in Japanese. Other than those 2 books, I absolutely recommend this book, Reiki in Japan. This is not a book about what Reiki is or how to do Reiki or how to learn to become a Reiki practitioner. This is the book that teaches you the cultural and historical context about where Reiki comes from. It will go into great detail about how Japan evolved before World War II and how energetic practices in Japan were evolving at that time, and also how World War II influenced how Reiki was brought to the West. This book also is going to talk in great detail about Shinto and Buddhism and how they have influenced the practice of Reiki and how they're really where Reiki came from. So this is an essential read. Before you do anything else, learn about the history of Reiki. And before I give you any other recommendations, the one thing that I'm going to tell you is if you see a book or you wonder why there's a book that I didn't recommend, it is most likely because that book did not reference the historical and cultural context of where Reiki comes from. If a book does not talk about the Shinto roots of Reiki, I am most likely not going to recommend it. I have one book on this list that doesn't do that, and I'll get to that and tell you why it is on this list in just a moment. This is your most essential read. The next book that I'm going to recommend is a book called Light on the Origins of Reiki by Tadao Yamaguchi. Hopefully that's coming through clearly. There you go. Master Yamaguchi's mother was taught by Master Hayashi, and she practiced Reiki every day as a lifestyle. She taught it to her children. She raised her children with it. It was something that she shared with everyone in her family for the duration of her lifetime. So Master Yamaguchi is the founder of Jikiden Reiki, which means Jikiden means from the source. So he is teaching Jikiden Reiki from the authentic roots of how Master Usui intended Reiki to be conveyed. He has information in here, like direct documentation from his mother and his mother's experience of learning Reiki. I would recommend him above anybody else. Anything that you see about Reiki, you should be getting from original Japanese sources first. So this book, Master, well, I don't know if he's Master or Mr., but Mr. Nishina's book and Master Yamaguchi's book. Both of these books, these are your number 1 and 2 essential reads. This is the book that I give to my students as their text for the course, in the Reiki Intensive Training course. The other 2 books I'm going to recommend are, well, I'll do one at a time. The first one is the original handbook, the original Reiki handbook of Dr. Mikao Usui. Master Usui was the founder of Reiki. Well, let me back up a little bit. Reiki itself is the life force energy that flows through all things. Master Usui meant for his practice of Shinshin Kaizen Usui Reiki Ryoho to be a system of practice for personal development and healing. So Reiki is something that exists for everyone to access. The Reiki practice, and that might be getting confusing, is the system that Master Usui created. The words in these books, or in this book and the other book I'm going to show you in just a moment, are direct translations. So I highly recommend that you get this book. The other book that is a direct translation is the Hayashi Reiki Manual. So Master Hayashi was the other most well-known Reiki master that was taught by Master Usui. These two practitioners, Master Usui, the creator, and Master Hayashi, are the two most important Reiki practitioners in our tradition. Going back to the Light on the Origins of Reiki book that I recommended, Master Hayashi was the one who taught Tadao Yamaguchi's mother. So definitely these 4 books, no matter what. The other book I'm going to recommend, and I have a couple of books to recommend by Frank, but I'm in the middle of reading one and I want to complete reading it before I do a review on it. It's called This is Reiki. I think it's one of his earlier books that he wrote on Reiki. This book, called One with Reiki by Frank Arjava Petter, is the book that I give to my apprentices and my students who have completed their Reiki intensive course training. I really like this book because this book is more of this is what Reiki means to me. This is how important the practice is. This is the love, the compassion. This is the book that's kind of like, here's the lifestyle I live with Reiki. The other thing about Frank is that he went to Japan and learned directly from Master Yamaguchi and spent a number of years there learning and teaching Reiki with Master Yamaguchi. So I would recommend him and his work. And he has written a lot of books, and he's one of the people who helped translate the Usui and Hayashi handbooks. So this is definitely a good book. One more thing I want to say about this, when I'm talking about how this book is really good for the lifestyle of Reiki, is that's the most important thing about Reiki. A lot of people come to me and they want to learn Reiki because they want to get certified to be a practitioner, which is great. I mean, I'm a practitioner. It's what I do for a living. Lots of people do it. It's a great supplement to your practice. But the most important thing about Reiki is that it is a lifestyle. We live by the principles of Reiki, and this is who we are and what we do. And it is always supposed to be about the practitioner first. My lifestyle, how I heal, how I personally develop. This is a practice for your own personal development. When you get comfortable enough with it or you feel ready, then you can share that practice with other people. And I'm happy to answer more questions about all of this in future videos. I hope to do a little bit more of these. So ask whatever questions you have. I'll compile a list. I'll come back to it. But this book is really good. And here I'm going to diverge from the Japanese practices and give you a couple of resources. Another book that I really like is this book called Reiki for Life by Penelope Cruz. I was really excited when I first found this book because in the very beginning of the book, you can see that I've used it quite a bit. In the very beginning of the book, Penelope talks about how the practice of Reiki is a personal path of healing and self-development, and how that is what Master Usui meant for it to be. So right from the beginning, she stays true to the essence of what Reiki practice is. The other thing I like about this book is that she does go back, and in the second half of the book, and you can see this is where I've marked everything, she goes back and she describes in great detail the Japanese practices and how they inform Reiki practice. So this book is really good. She also goes into energetic anatomy, which I think is really important. It's something that we do cover in our Reiki training course. So this book is really good. This was the book that I used to give to my students until I got through reading more of the Japanese resources and had a better in-depth knowledge of them. So this book is really good. I don't give it anymore because I switched over to Master Yamaguchi's book. I like this book though. Another book that I really like is a book, well, I'm going to recommend Anything by Raven Keyes. She has 2 books before this book. I cannot remember the names of both of the books. This is a book on medical Reiki. This book is her book describing how to use Reiki in hospital and institutions. This book is not recreating Reiki practice. It is not going into this is how we do it here versus we do it there. What Raven has done with her Reiki practice, or she had done because she recently just passed away a couple of months ago. What she did was learn how to use Reiki in traumatic stress situations and in hospitals and institutions, giving Reiki to people who were receiving surgery. And then also recovering from cancer or going through chemo and things of that nature. So this is more of a, here's how you practice in these professional medical settings. This is really a game changer for me. I did this training. I learned a lot about it. In her other two books, I'll have to come back to the names of them because they've completely slipped my mind. In the first book that she wrote, she describes the first 9 months after 9/11 happened, because she's from New York City. She was invited to come down to Ground Zero and gave Reiki to the first responders at Ground Zero for the first 9 months after the attack happened. So she has some really hands-on, in-depth knowledge of how to work with high stress traumatic situations. And then after that, one of her clients asked her if she would come and give Reiki to her while that client was having breast cancer surgery. And I believe it was breast cancer surgery. That might be a little detail that I need to clarify. But the surgeon did invite her into the operating room, and he was so impressed by how Reiki supported and supplemented the patient's body that he began to speak about it and share about it all over the world. And we know that person as Dr. Oz. Not that we're talking about promoting this in a big way, but Dr. Oz did experience what Reiki was like in an operating room, and it created this whole system called the Raven Keys Medical Reiki International. So for no other reason than hands-on information, experience, and how to do this in a practical medical setting, I recommend all three books by Raven Keys and going through the training at the Raven Keys Medical Reiki International. The other book I'm going to add to this list today is a book called Reiki and Clinical Practice. Hopefully that's coming through. This is the last book I'm going to add to this list. From here on out, there are books that I could talk about, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend. I do hesitate in this recommendation simply because there is no conversation in this book about the roots of Reiki, the Shinto roots of Reiki, the Buddhism, the cultural practice. In fact, the beginning description of Reiki looks like something directly pulled from the internet and some of the more Western descriptions that leave out all of this information. So I do have concerns about that because I feel like it has to be in there, and it wouldn't be necessarily something that would apply specifically to this book, except for she takes the time to do the description, and I feel like the description needs to be accurate. However, this book is amazing in other ways. What Anne has done here is she has gone through and, well, at the time of the writing of this book, she went through and collected all of the studies done that highlight the benefits of Reiki. And she goes through each study and says, here is how the study didn't work. Here's what we can do to set it up to get better results and better understanding. And here are the things that we know for sure because of these studies. So she goes through and she evaluates all of the studies that not all of them, I'm sure there are many, but many of the studies that had been done on Reiki up to the time of this writing. So you have scientific empirical data here to look at. One of the things that I love is the study on variable heart rate is the one that showed the most results. It shows that when you receive Reiki, your variable heart rate will slow down, and it will give you more space between heartbeats, which means that your body's being calmed down and that your nervous system is resetting. That's me paraphrasing, but it's really nice to see in words. So this book is really useful for practitioners. I do keep this and use this because I really feel like it's important for us to make sure that we are including practical, logical, down-to-earth, real-world presence applications of Reiki in our practice. Yes, Reiki is very much an energetic practice, and that's exactly what it is. It can be very spiritual for some people. It can even supplement a religious experience for people, but that is not all that Reiki is, and it's not what we're doing when we treat Reiki. So we need to be more practical. And this book and the medical Reiki book do help us cover a lot of things. Like, people are coming to us because they need help with PTSD and trauma and anxiety and depression. So we need to apply practical trauma-informed knowledge to how we're treating people. And I could get up in another video or go into another subject here. So again, I'm happy to have conversations about this and answer any questions you have. But for now, this is the last book that I'm going to put on your recommended reading list today. Again, I'm reading some more books, and if you have any books about Reiki that you'd like me to review or give you my thoughts and responses to, just let me know. Add them to the comments here, because this is going to be a YouTube video, and I'm going to break it out into parts and put it on Instagram so everybody can see this. So add it to the comments, or you can email me at izzy@transformationreiki.com. You can find us on the website, transformationreiki.com. Thank you for your time today.